Councillor, now move over to Mill Road at Kedington.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, we'll move on to item number 4, I think it is now, the adjusted agenda. I'd like to do some updates, if I can, first. We'd like to add an additional condition to the permission, which seeks a higher level of water efficiency measures. As you are aware from the report, the site benefits from an adopted development brief. The development brought forward. That development brief sets out that the housing will use no more than 105 litres per person per day, and that condition would seek to enforce that position as set out in the adopted development brief. There has been a late paper received from Councillor Rushbrook, who is the ward member for Kedington, and I'd like to read it out to you. So it starts: I am aware that members of the Development Control Committee had a site visit to the above area at the end of November 2014. I just wish the visit had tied up with the times when children go to or leave the school, because you would have had the opportunity to witness what is a lovely, quiet, narrow village road becoming a very hectic and dangerous area. The proposed development for up to 40 houses is only a few metres from the school entrance. This summer I met with an 11-year-old girl who is a pupil at the primary academy in Kedington. She lives a few metres from the school entrance and is not able to walk to school on her own, as she has to cross the road. Cars are parked opposite the road junction on grass verges, and visibility is very poor for an adult, never mind a child. The girl has since written to the Parish Council and produced a PowerPoint presentation at one of their meetings, highlighting the dangers of parking at school times. She has also written to Matthew Hancock MP and the Suffolk County Council, who have replied acknowledging their concerns, and yet the Highways Department has given approval for the development. If Development Control Committee uphold this application, I would ask for conditions to be put on the vehicles, lorries, etc. that will be used for building the houses. I would recommend no delivery of vehicles between 8 and 9:30 and again at the end of the school day. Cars will quite often mount the footpath when the road becomes blocked, and this is a danger to everyone. The village has already experienced problems with lorries, plants, etc. in Mill Road, Kedington, where the new development of 63 homes is being delivered. Kedington residents are very concerned about this development. I am anxious about the proposed new junction and ask to give you careful consideration and listen to the parish councils and resident views. Marion Rushbrook. Within that letter, the councillor asks for a condition around deliveries. You will note from your report that officers are recommending in condition 16A a construction management plan, and that seeks to agree delivery vehicle times. So officers can note that. I think that's a worthy point that the councillor raised there. You'll also note within the report that it talks about the designation of a bund to do with the sustainable urban drainage. Having considered this since the report was finalised, it would be prudent to highlight to you that whilst a strategy for SUDS has been drawn up, and that strategy may involve bunds, the finer details have not been worked up completely yet, and it may or may not involve a bund. If bunds are not forthcoming, no designation would be required. That designation does not need to be given at this particular junction. It is also worth noting that the report talks about the translocation of reptiles. Since the completion of the report, a sum of money has been agreed with the applicant and the parks team at St Edmunds Borough Council for a sum of £14,119.50 for maintenance and monitoring over a 10-year period. I'll now turn to the presentation. This is the site in the northeast part of the village. Dash End Lane is to the south. This is Mill Road, and HallRoad is here. The details before us within the application, as shown here, is a tree survey that was carried out by the applicant to identify those trees that were worthy of retention. Those details were also within the adopted development brief. There is a proposed application, the application before you seeks landscaping, strategic landscaping and access, and those details are shown here. I will go through them later on. There was an indicative layout showing how some housing could come forward. The proposal before you is up to 40 dwellings. We find that the number has not been finalised and is not before us at this time, and there is details of the application around the access. I think it would be prudent to set out that this site is allocated within the Rural Vision document. The allocation required an adopted development brief, and as I have already said, that was adopted at full council in September. The application is for up to 40 dwellings, an outline application with only the matters before us for strategic landscaping and access. Work was done at the development brief stage to identify those trees that were to be retained. It also identified that the northern boundary, and I'll go back to that here, the northern boundary, which played an important function in screening the site from views from the countryside to the north. Whilst that boundary was particularly important, it's identified through the assessments that I've talked about already that those trees that were in there weren't of a particularly high standard, and those of you who went on the committee site inspection, as shown in photos, we'll see in a minute, we'll see that they have probably seen better days and are not the type of trees that would be or sit comfortably within residential gardens. I'll probably return to the presentation now and go through the slides. This is the front of the site. Members will note that there will be a dropped curb and HallRoad markings here. This is looking into the site directly. The access is here. HallRoad is here. This is again looking at the entrance, the access to Mulberry House. Entrance is here. HallRoad is here. This is looking into the site, and you're beginning to see the northern boundary there, and some of those trees that are on there. This shot shows more of the northern boundary, and there is a sycamore tree here that is proposed to be replaced. Its presence within the site is valued, and the space that it's occupied, but the inspection of the tree showed that it has I believe, a crack, and so its long-term health it cannot be assured. This is the northern boundary again, and it shows a lot of lavandii trees within there. Some of the trees that aren't of that species have seen better days. This is the southern boundary, residential properties on the southern boundary. There are three principal properties, one of them is quite new. This is the eastern boundary, and a lot of the trees here were identified as able to be retained. This is again looking back at the sycamore tree and the space that occupies. I'll go back to the access now and talk you through that if I can. The details that are shown here, the majority of these details were within the adopted development brief, and the applicant did a lot of work in the build-up to the development brief and going into consultation, because they were particularly concerned with the access and its impact on a protected lime tree that you can see in this location here. So they did a lot of proactive work with their highway engineers, the Highway Authority, their arboriculturists and the Council's Tree and Landscape Officer, and they were able to come up with an access that met highway standards, and that the Tree and Landscape Officer was satisfied would not detrimentally harm the lime tree that is protected. The only details that were not within the development brief were that the H-bar road markings, as shown here, the development brief did set out a clear commitment that the applicant would seek to find out what was possible to enable pedestrians to go from the site onto the southern side of the Mill Road and then allow people to go to the school. And since the development brief was adopted, the applicant did work with the authority, the Highway Authority, and the suggestion of the H-bar road markings was what came forward. Something like a zebra crossing or a more structured crossing was unacceptable to the Highway Authority, and what is before us is the only option that was available to the applicant. It was very interesting to hear the previous item that you've just discussed, and the discussion around existing problems and whether the resolution of those problems falls on an applicant. The Parish Council have raised significant concerns, and I have met with them, and they are deeply concerned, as I'm sure you see from the letters that they have sent, about parking, and obviously those that have been raised within Councillor Rushbrook's letter. The application site, the principle of the site for residential development was established with the allocation of the site. It was further established in the adoption of the development brief, and the Highway Authority have examined this point at length, and they are satisfied that the access that will be improved will be safe. I think I'll leave it there and come back to you if you have some questions for me. The application is recommended for approval. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mike, we have one public speaker on this one from the Parish Council. Councillor Nathan Oda.
Thank you.
You have 3 minutes on.
The proposed development has failed to mitigate against its impact on the highway, so we call for an independent road safety audit of the bespoke road junction design. Accelerating new housing in an unsustainable way creates demand for school places and employment in excess of those available in the village. New housing, which is not close to new jobs, is likely to have significant effects on the environment. To comply with the SEA directives and regulations, the reasonable alternatives, the not preferred options of the core strategy, need to be reassessed, and proposed measures need to monitor the significant effects, for example, to demonstrate how carbon emissions will be minimised. The site needs to be reassessed against the main sustainable objectives of the core strategy. School intake policy means new occupants may secure school places at the expense of the existing village children, forcing them to school elsewhere. This will impact on children and families already settled, or trigger expansion of Kedington School to meet this new demand. Access to this site for housing is therefore intrinsically linked to resolving infrastructure capacity and planning issues of the school and preschool sites, whether this is acknowledged or not. It is not apparent how the school could be expanded without solving access and road safety issues and without the use of adjacent land. Rural Vision discusses important green space in the centre of the village and goes on to highlight the local need to maintain the open space in the centre and its important role in maintaining the distinctiveness and character of this area, which should be protected from future development. The central land adjacent to the school was previously designated amenity land and protected by policy. However, during the preparation of the Rural Vision and 2012 consultation for development, it was reclassified as countryside. This, combined with the failure to prepare an appropriate, up-to-date, detailed landscape character assessment of Kedington in the preparation of documents, is significant. LCA outcomes are required to identify and inform conditions for development and address specific issues in detail to help with the process of managing change in a particular place. Due to the landlocked nature of the current school, any additional pressures on the school to expand capacity threatens the character of the village. LCA detail and the local plan policy failed to meet the spatial planning objection of the village. The green landscape of visual importance, fundamental to its character, has not been protected by policy, so approval of this application is likely to lead to the development of the central land and diminish the character of the settlement. The council appear to not have carried out any independent review of the brief to show how it will meet the needs of the whole community to address issues
Can you start by
or address issues raised in the consultation. We request a review of the local plan and the cumulative effects of development.
Can you wind down now, please?
Thank you. Right. Over to members. Councillor Pugh.
Thank you. I know this area and situation. I have to support Councillor Rushbrook's points. But that said, this junction arrangement looks interesting, looks confident, but I would like to hear comments on highways as to they're not here now. That's a shame. I hadn't noticed they'd gone, but I really would have liked to have heard their description of it. There is chaos with at school times, and I would support a restriction on lorry movements during that time. We've had in other places. I think it's absolutely essential. But my main question is whether we have travel plans for factory buildings and things like that. Is it possible to have it for an estate? And is it possible for it to be, and I know we can't address existing issues through developments, but actually if we have a travel plan, it would have to incorporate a relationship with the school and with the wider community. And there are a lot of community based travel and traffic issues here that the town, the village, struggles to manage and cope with. And I wonder whether this development, which will inevitably put much more pressure on that situation, could have a conditioned travel plan or something that would give the town, give the village council, give the parish council and other community organisations a bit more strength and leverage in trying to manage those traffic situations.
Thank you, Councillor Pugh. I must admit, I don't favour the H marks on the road there because I hark back to the Green Cross Code, which said you find a clear place to cross, and we're going to be asking children to cross between two parked vehicles on a bank that doesn't favour them for seeing what's coming. I think maybe there should be some pressure there to put in a more formal crossing than run across only one job. However, Councillor Rushton.
Thank you, Chair. Exactly the point I was going to try to make, in that we've been told highways dismiss the idea of anything other than H-bars. And my question is quite simply why, because a more robust indicated crossing would surely be much safer. So hopefully highways could give us some more information.
Thank you. Councillor Byrne.
Thank you, Chair. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to go to the site visit. However, I did get a fellow councillor to take me into Kedington at school times, and to say I was very, very concerned what was going on at the time without considering a new build and a larger development. I just want clarity on a point that has been raised, please. There has been letters of objection from occupants, and at number 17 it says the site is outside the housing settlement boundary. Can you confirm whether that in fact is a relevant argument or not, please?
Thank you.
And, sorry, I'm not quite finished if you don't mind. The local school is at full capacity. That is a genuine major concern if these 40 houses obviously will generate young children. I agree with the other comments that have been made that high roads, I think, could do a lot more to make that junction a lot safer. We talk about up to 40 houses. I think it would have been more helpful if we'd have known the exact figure. It would have given us a better idea of what we were going to have to deal with. And what we've got to consider is that if it's 40 dwellings, the increase in traffic that's going to be on that road during our day going onto that site, which is very close to the school, which I think is another issue that needs looking at closely, where we've got young children to-ing and fro-ing. And because of the age range of these children, I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that they're not sensible, but when children are talking, getting excited about things, I think we need something that is definitely there that will insist how they cross the road, whether it be a crossing or something else. And can I also ask, where we've got open space play provision 51,000, community sports facilities 40, and the open space community zone, can we have confirmation that that will be spent in Kedington? Because that may be some of the money that we could spend on some provision that would make things a lot better. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more? No, right. Answer, please.
Thank you. Thank you through you, Chair. As a general rule of thumb for travel plans for residential development, we don't look to have formal travel plans like you may have seen on some of the strategic sites that have come forward when a residential development is less than 50 dwellings. However, this scheme before you does seek to upgrade 2 bus stops so that they can have bus shelters, and the H-bar road markings that I know we're going to talk a little bit further about are part of that encouraging and putting the infrastructure in place to allow people to travel to those destinations. So one of the benefits, as I see it with this site, is that if you are to live on this site and you have a child that goes to the school, they have a realistic opportunity of walking to the school because it is so close. If the allocated site was on the other side of the village, where children had to cross a series of roads and navigate a mile, so to speak, then that chance of them walking to school diminishes. That's not to say if they lived to the other side of the village they wouldn't have done that. It's just that with the site being so close, there is a very good chance that that would happen. School capacity, clearly the report indicates that Suffolk County Council have set out that the school is at capacity. There is no disagreement on that. And I believe, having read the previous report for the Stourmead development, the school was at capacity there. As with the Stourmead development, the Suffolk County Council asked for a son, they're asking for another son. When seeking monies to expand the school, always turn their mind to have they got the ability to expand the school, and if they haven't, they will come back to the local authority as they have done elsewhere within West Suffolk. And so I'm entirely satisfied that they feel that they will be able to collect the monies from these 2 developments and expand the primary school. The point raised about whether the site is outside of the housing settlement boundary, the resident that wrote in was incorrect. That's clearly very wrong. As I have said to you this morning a number of times, and is within the report, the site is within the housing settlement boundary and is an allocated site, so therefore it has to be within the housing settlement boundary. In that resident's defence, some time ago, before the Rural Vision 2031 document was adopted, it was outside of the housing settlement boundary, so I can see where that confusion has come from. We had a question around money for open space, and I can confirm that the money will be received by the borough, and officers will always be looking to spend the money within the village. we will be looking to work with the parish council on identifying improvements and spending that money within the village, because we would like to see the residents who move on into the new development to benefit from those facilities. So I hope that gives you the comfort that you need. I don't think I've missed anything from there. I know that there is clearly the bigger issue of highways, so I'll pass over to my colleague, Sandra.
Okay, I appreciate that I wasn't here for the first part of the discussion. However, I believe that you've got the issue with is in the immediate location of the crossing town, correct? I've been through this with the applicant and we've gone through several ideas of what could go in here. And using my knowledge and experience and qualifications in safety audit, we've had to rule certain things out because this site is on a partial bend. So certain road markings we wouldn't be able to put there because if you're on a bicycle or a motorcycle, road markings on the bend are not really safe. We've looked at road humps here at this location to have a raised table view. Again, it's on the bend and it's not really suitable to pass a safety audit. So we've come up with a decision to bring the footpath all the way along the front so that children can gather and wait across the road. There's tactile crossing points, make it more visual that there is an informal crossing point here. And the H-bar markings are there so to encourage drivers not to park over the dropped curbs, which they are tending to do at the moment without the markings there. So we're trying to get people to try change their parking habits in this area. We've also looked at coloured surfacing through here. I think it would be inappropriate in this particular location. And that has other maintenance issues as well. So we have looked at a number of measures in this area, but we have thought long and hard about them, and there are other implications that go with those ideas. So at the moment, what we've seen is, say, like we said, we've got bus improvements in the area, and we've got, say, further footway there for children's safety and the possibilities of highlighting for children on the areas location.
Thank you, Sam. I don't think I would convince anybody else to do the safety of children. Councillor Moray-White.
Thank you, John. I think it's done the opposite, really, because it shows how very difficult it is to achieve a decent scheme here. What about double yellow lines on the bend? Has that been considered? And if so, why could they not be put there?
It's something that can be considered, but as you know, that has a TRO attached to it, and so it's not definite. I mean, I would support double yellow lines going through here, but it's not something that I can condition.
I find it really extraordinary that these things come post-development very often. To me, double yellow lines on a bend like this should be intrinsic to the development, because it was quite clear to us on the site visit that the number of cars parked on that bend were not going to make a suitable crossing point for any children, even 12, 13-year-olds who were chatting with their headphones on them, not looking. Crossing between those parked cars is just impractical. So to me, part and parcel of the development must be clearing that corner to make a safe site for children or anybody else crossing on that bend. And I can't believe it isn't beyond the powers of the county council to do that at the same time as the development coming forward, or even before, because given the number of cars that are unsuitable parked there at the moment, double yellow lines would seem to be quite appropriate at the time now, at the present.
Thank you, Councillor Moray. We'll get a few more first and we'll come back to you. Councillor HallRoad.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I've been to the other side, unfortunately, but I'm guessing that a lot of the traffic or the parking in this particular area is actually from mums or parents taking their kids to the school and leaving it there and parking inappropriately on pavements and on bends and close to junctions, which I remember my highway code is really not encouraged. I live in a village. I mean, a lot of the objections that came with this application were almost identical to the ones that came in my village when they were expanding it with new developments. The school is allegedly at full capacity, but this is the Suffolk County Council thing to ameliorate. I dare say they probably take some out of catchment children. New development will bring new children in who will take those places when those children move on. It is difficult. The parking outside our village school is absolutely crazy at delivery and pick-up times, but thereafter it's like kind of deserted. So I think sometimes the problem is overblown at these particular things. Not to say there isn't a danger, but perhaps the parents who are delivering their children should be aware of it. Thank you.
I think you could have seen the bend in the road with the traffic all on the inside of the bend, and the fact it's on a slope and the road is very busy. You might change your mind on some goes on. It is very busy there. Councillor Byrne.
Thank you, Chair. The Highways colleague has talked about some of the suggestions. Have you considered either a pelican crossing or lights? If we look at the Clement School in Haverhill, which is just off a very, very busy roundabout, traffic coming from off the estates, there is a crossing there, and there is someone there supervising the children during the very, very busy times. And it's quite right. After all the children are in school and safe and the gates are shut, the parking isn't a problem. In Kedington, and I do accept when I went there were several mums and parents, and some I knew. Many of those parents who drop their children off from school in the morning then drive into Haverhill or Cambridge to work. Because we need to encourage parents to walk with their children. But you could see that some parents were dressed ready for work, and after they dropped the children, off they went. That is I think it's just a fatality waiting to happen if we don't do something. Traffic lights or a crossing and a person supervising, I think is sensible. Don't know what the resources are, but I think it should be considered.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Councillor Stevens.
I did have the benefit of going on site inspection. I was surprised at the number of cars that were parked there during our site inspection visit, which was outside drop-off and pick-up time for the children. So if those cars were parked there all day, one wonders where the parents would have parked had they dropped their children off. Well, I leave that in members' minds. But there are two entrances to this particular school. Is it only one of the entrances is used, or is it capable of both entrances being used, and to mitigate the flow of children into the particular school? Are there any capacity within the school grounds, because this is an existing school highways problem? It may well be slightly exacerbated by the new development, but the problem is existing. It's nothing to do with the proposed development. That problem should be solved first, and then the badly needed new houses in the borough constructed to the highest standards and to the correct highways levels. So why hasn't the traffic situation been solved at the school prior to this development coming forward?
Councillor Stevens. Councillor Peel.
Well, that's very true. I don't see how we can link this development to the existing problem. The problem does exist, and it's absolutely enormous. It's not overblown by any means. It is a huge problem, and it is partly down to the structure of this bend, the way it is, and that's why I wanted highways answers on the new construction of this entrance. But I also want us to find ways of drawing highways into this debate of such an unsafe area. And as this development can provide community money, can highways be encouraged to see how some of that money can be spent appropriately? The flashing lights, perhaps, all around that bend, highlighting it. Are there other things that you could do that you haven't examined? Everybody in this community virtually is within walking distance of the school, so it is within the hands of the community to help to solve this problem. I go back to my request for a travel plan. I know it's not usual, but is it something that this committee could agree to condition, recognising this situation? The situation is going to be exacerbated to some extent, so there is a minor link to it. Because of behaviour, I mean, it's great that we've got that pavement there, it's great that everybody can walk much more safely to it than they can from some other places in the village. But there isn't employment in the village. The people in those houses are going to have to drive elsewhere. They're going to do exactly what everybody else does, drive down their part of the village and drop their children off. Can we in any way organise or support the organisation of a drop-off point elsewhere for a walking class? It's definitely the cooperation and collaboration of the school, but the school has got an interest in this new development. I'd love to know how highways can play a part in this, and whether we can request a travel plan that puts some weight, some obligations on other people.
Thank you, Councillor Blue. Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Chairman. I went on the site visit, and I must say, concern about the entrance and the bend on the road is still quite significant. But thinking back many years, when we allowed the development of Cotton Lane in Bury, this committee, or previous members of it, we said we wanted a pedestrian crossing on Mustard Street to make that development acceptable. Notwithstanding the errors that followed, we eventually got it. And I think we need to dig in here. I think we need to say, if there's not a formal crossing on that bend, that we don't agree to this application. Because I don't think H-bars are going to discourage anybody, because there's nothing enforceable about them anyway. If we're told that, I think I understood that highways often say that a formal crossing there is not achievable, and I'm guessing it's because of the layout of the road, I think that should be enough to deter us from allowing this application to go forward. And I'm also, get away from the highway just for a minute, it appears up to 40 dwellings. I suggest that the density of those 40 dwellings is going to be far different to the surrounding areas, and that's going to change the nature of the village. And I think that should be a consideration. Can we consider that at the outline stage? Or does that have to wait to the detailed stage when we'll be persuaded that we should do it, I suppose? But I think we've got to dig in on this junction. If my memory serves me right, it's horrendous. You've got the truck, you've got, what's it, HallRoad, meeting Dash End Lane, plus the new road, all converging on a bend. I think it's a disaster.
Thank you, Councillor Beckwith. Sam, do you want to come back? Clearly concerned about the crossing.
Try. I think, I do understand the concerns you've got there. I think lights as in the Pelican, I think might be a little bit too much for this part of Kedington. However, maybe a zebra could be considered. But that will take out an awful lot of parking around that. That's something that needs to be considered. And if that's, I'll be happy to support that idea, that we have to go through a safety audit process. So I'll be happy to consider that. So.
Thank you, Chairman. Very interesting debate. It's very useful to hear this, so thank you for this. I myself have visited the site a number of times, as you can well imagine. I visited the site a number of times during the drafting of the development brief and during the planning process. I visited the site on Monday as well, and my colleague visited on Tuesday as well. And whilst I have been to the site during a drop-off or a pick-up time, when I've visited the site outside of those times, I've never seen cars before. So it was somewhat of a surprise to me on Thursday when we went on the committee site inspection bus to see those cars parked there. Whether there was something going on at the school which required the attendance of parents, or whether there was some other reason for those cars being there, I don't know. I am aware through my role as a committee member to my daughter's preschool, which is linked to the primary school in Great Walnethan, that every primary school within the county is required to have its own travel plan these days. And I can almost think, well, sorry, let me start that again. I can't think of a primary school really within the borough or the county that does not experience drop-off and pick-up problems with cars. It is a problem that is existing, and I labour the point to you that it is not a problem that is acceptable to fall onto another developer. It is not the responsibility of the developer in this location to rectify an existing problem. I cannot labour that point to you enough. The crossing, I believe I know the crossing that Councillor Beckwith is talking about on Mustow Street. I'd certainly, whilst I'm not as qualified and experienced as Sam, Mustow Street, that crossing clearly is on a straight road, but clearly the development, the discussion is moving on here. Councillor Beckwith also asked about the density. If the application was approved and if reserve matters came forward that showed 40 dwellings, that would represent a density of 22 dwellings per hectare. So it's slightly below 30, and I think that reflects the existing pattern of development in the surrounding area. So I would have no problem in my own mind, having thought about this, that if the maximum amount of development came forward, that it would not sit comfortably within that setting. And I think I've set that density out in paragraph 2. The principle of this site has been set, and it was set during the adoption by the Council of the Rural Vision 2031 document. The issue of the access was worked up and reviewed extensively by the developer in the development brief, and they did an awful lot of work with the Highway Authority, knowing that they were proposing an access onto a bend and near a location to a school, and they have done an awful lot of work in that regard. If members are going to be minded to refuse this application, I think it would be a refusal on principal grounds, and I think we would be on very difficult grounds to refuse an application on principle, which is an allocated site which benefits from the development brief that this council adopted on the 23rd of September, which included a lot of the details that are before you. Having heard what Sam has said in relation to, was it a pelican crossing? I think, was it, or a zebra crossing?
The only thing that would be suitable is zebra.
Zebra. I would be happy to go away and explore that further with the applicant if that would be helpful to members. And I think in the interest of trying to move forward with the development, if that is achievable, I would seek that officers are given delegated authority to approve that. If it is not something that can be achieved, then it would be my intention to bring the application before you again. That might be acceptable to you. I'll leave that to you to consider.
you, Pete. Well, I think our main stumbling block is the one thing that wasn't specifically in the plan was the method of crossing the road. And I think this is where major concerns are being raised today. And what I would suggest we do with this one, because Sam seems to indicate there is a possibility, is we defer this application for further investigation into the satisfactory way of dealing with children, pedestrians, at this point. Right, I have several wanting to speak. Councillor Russell.
I was going to propose deferment simply so that this negotiation could go on, because maybe a child's life is at stake, and if someone is killed, it's going to look very, very bad that we've passed something without having resolved the issue first. So I would propose deferral.
Seconded. Councillor Byrne. Yep.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
Yes, I do second that proposal. Can I just ask, of those 40 dwellings, what car parking provision and facility will be on the new site, which will give us an indication of what the applicant thinks the to and fro-in is likely to be? We've got 40 dwellings, assuming, like most houses, there's either 1 or 2 cars. That's going to give 80 vehicles, and I just raise this because I think it endorses why we need the deferred decision.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. Well, as I've said, the application doesn't specify any car parking spaces because the full details of the application are not before us. However, the application was supported by traffic modelling, and that traffic modelling was assessed by the HallRoad authority. So I'm assuming, but I'll look to be corrected by my HallRoad authority colleague, that some assumptions were made, so perhaps some assumptions in the mix of housing and what the adopted car parking standards are, and the modelling we worked up from there. So obviously that modelling was examined by the HallRoad authority and found to be acceptable.
Councillor Lakeworth.
Chairman, I think we should welcome the fact that Highways are going to try and find some more formal crossing there. I've got a bit of experience on crossings because I've been chasing several in my own division in the county. There's a real risk of a zebra crossing that it won't meet the criteria because vehicle approach speeds are going to be too high, so they have to put in a buffing or pelican or some other form of crossing, so hopefully that can be looked at the same time. I think the real issues with the school shouldn't muddy the waters on this junction. It's a problem without the school, it's a problem without the pedestrians getting across. I think when we were on the site visit, there was a vehicle trying to turn into HallRoad. There was a vehicle coming out, so it was stuck. It was stuck. And then you've got vehicles coming out from the new development, you've got vehicles coming around the bend, and it's not a good arrangement, Chairman, and I'm not convinced that it's resolved. So, but I think we should look at all types of crossing.
Thank you, yes. Councillor Linder.
Thank you. Well, part of what I was going to raise has been said because I was going to call for the deferment until there was more investigation done. And so I welcome that this is being proposed. But we're looking at crossings, we're looking at pelican crossings, but I'd like more talking with the school as well to see if there's any way the school can help to alleviate this with walking buses from another drop-off point, and also Parent-Teachers Association to get the parents on board, because it's the parents whose children go to that school that's causing parking problems which are unsafe. Can we do any further negotiations with Highways while we're looking at the whole picture to make it safer as possible for children?
Thank you. Councillor Beale.
Everything I was going to say is now been said then.
And on the list at the moment, Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Chairman. If the Kedington Parliament to defer this, could we please have a consultation about doubling the lines with the parish councils, whether that would be appropriate moving forward? And can the highways just tell me who's going to have priority? Traffic coming out of HallRoad or traffic coming out of the new development? Where they meet before they get to the junction?
Give way will be from the development that's got to give way for traffic on the existing.
Right. Councillor Clements.
Mine's at a small point, but the modelling usually is quite good when we look at the event areas and the event the children will pick up at school. So you need to know how many will actually produce. That's usually quite good when you can be works it out, but how many houses produce and children to come to school. So you need to know that, because otherwise that doesn't really back up your claim, because 40 houses or something bring so many children forward or go to school will lower your case. The only thing you've got in here is, which I was pleased to see, which I came from last report, was this like design line to get these sustainable walks from the village, which was really keen on. So I would say across the board, it's not as much for the school, not as much for the pupils, it is also that we were trying to get safe walkways anyway through the village, and I would base on that, because we base on the school, we don't believe we have enough numbers on that anyway. So that's something to look at, but outside schools, the people on us, the more parking you get out there, the safer they are, because it's loads of traffic there.
Thank you, Councillor Clements. Interesting on the school numbers being full to capacity. I have a school, primary school, that's full to capacity. I have 100 houses being built in the village. I have no money coming from that development towards education whatsoever. So hopefully this 106 agreement will stand and will not be withdrawn by the county at a late stage.
Thank you, Chair. I think we need to be very careful here on what we leave here today with an aspiration for what we are trying to get the applicant to resolve. And I know I've already mentioned this. If the application were refused, I think we need to keep in mind that there are existing problems, and those existing problems will remain. Councillor Mard May White made the point that she would like some ongoing discussion on double yellow lines to run in parallel. Now, that feels to me to be an issue that is outside of the applicant's control, and I want to be very clear to members that whilst I can go away and facilitate discussions around a crossing, I cannot go away and ask for the issue around car parking for the school to be resolved. That is a separate issue. I'm happy to ask the Highway Authority to do that, but it would not be in parallel, it would be separate too. I can come back and report to you and see how that goes, but it would not be, in my eyes, material to this planning application. The issue around working with the school, again, it's a school issue, the problems that are there today. It is, to a large extent, or all of it is their problem to manage. Whilst I recognise the developer is seeking more housing, which will lead to more children going to the school, we are trying to ensure a safe route from this development to the school. So it is not for this developer to solve that problem. I'm getting lots of nods, so I think I've laboured that point enough, and I should be quiet on that. What my notes are saying here is that we are, if you vote on this in this particular way, is that we will go away and bring forward to you next time options on what can be achieved within the applicant's remit. I'm getting some nods again, so that's what I'm going to take away and see how the vote goes. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we should stress that our concern is for the kids coming out of this new development that will have to cross the road somewhere near that point. And the ongoing problems with Kedington, I'm afraid, are not something we can hang on this application. Right, it has been proposed and seconded for deferment, but the investigations that Peter has just outlined. All those in favour, please show. 14.